Divorce is hard. Divorce is harder when there's a young child involved. It's even harder still when your ex is an ass and deliberately goes out of his way to complicate everything he can in whatever way he can, even if that meant hurting our daughter. I didn't want May to be stuck in the middle of an increasingly toxic situation, so the minute I was able to, I rented the first place that popped up in my budget and got us both out of there. It was no dream home, just a narrow 2-story with a sagging porch across the front. Between it and the placement of the windows, it almost looked like the place was frowning at us as we pulled up. But it was cheap, and it was ready, and it was away from Cody, which practically made it a paradise in my book. May, on the other hand, wasn't nearly as easily won over. The first night we were there, she crawled into bed with me and huddled against my side.
I don't like it.
Sorry, kiddo. I know it's not great, but it'll only be for a little while, okay?
The walls make noise.
It's an old house, sweetie. They do that sometimes.
I want to go home. They didn't do that there.
I know. It was hard to make a 5-year-old understand that home wasn't home anymore. Even though Cody and I had explained to her that Mommy and Daddy loved her very much, and we were going to be living in 2 separate houses from now on, I wasn't sure how much of it had actually sunk in yet. The entire first week seemed to be one long exercise of patience. May was moody and easily upset. She wanted her normal routine back. She wanted Daddy. She wanted to go home. I told her over and over that this was home now, but that just made her scream louder. And I'm surprised that none of the neighbors called Child Protective Services on me for all the tantrums she was throwing. Nothing I did seemed to matter. I finally broke down and called Cody, hoping that a visit with Daddy might make her feel better. But he just left.
You want it out so bad, Suzanne? You deal with it.
I reminded him that the it he was referring to was our daughter, who was scared and confused. But, of course, he just scoffed and hung up. If I had any doubts about leaving him before, they were certainly all gone now. The thing about kids, though, is that they're resilient. It took some time, but May eventually began to warm up to the house, even starting to sleep in her own room once she got used to all the groaning and sighs that come with an age setting. And I breathed a heavy sigh of relief. First hurdle overcome, and of course, with no help from Cody. Maybe I'll be able to handle this single mother thing after all. I knew things were really starting to improve, though, when May started mentioning an imaginary friend. It was just a normal thing for someone her age to do, and getting us back to normal was my goal since the beginning. I had just gotten out of the shower after a long day, and May was sitting in the bathroom doorway, playing with a pair of Barbies. I reached down to ruffle her hair before I dragged a comb through my own. She giggled and peeked up at me from behind a curtain of messy bangs.
I know something you don't know.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah?
So, are you going to tell me what it is?
Nope.
I stuck my tongue out at her in the mirror, and she grinned impishly. Why not?
'Cause it's a secret.
But I'm really good at keeping secrets. May shook her head resolvely.
Nope. The man in the mirror said no.
Man in the mirror? I paused, my comb halfway through the length of wet hair, and I glanced over my shoulder.
Yeah, he lives in there and talks to me sometimes, but you're not supposed to know.
Oh, right. Well, I certainly don't know about any man in the mirror.
Good.
May had always had a very active imagination, and the man in the mirror wasn't her first invisible friend. The last and longest one had been a purple tiger named Tofu, who slept under her bed and walked across the ceilings instead of floors. Does he have a name, sweetie?
Mister.
Well, Missy, you tell Mister it's time to brush your teeth and go to bed. May tucked one of the Barbies under her arm and stood up.
He's not here here right now, Mama,
she said as if it was painfully obvious. Oh, sorry, silly me. I guess you're on your own then, huh? She heaved a dramatic sigh, hung her head low, and dragged her feet across the floor as she made her way to her room to change into pajamas. I stifled a laugh and dried off, happy to see my little girl was bouncing back. May became quite fond of Mister. Sometimes I find her in the bathroom, sitting on the floor and playing as she chatted away about her day.
He came to visit me.
She'd tell me when I found her.
He said to tell you hi.
Tell him I said hi back.
Okay, Mama. That'll make him happy. He likes you. He says you're pretty.
That's very nice of him, sweetie. She'd nod and return to whatever she was doing, and I'd smile. But it was bittersweet. It seemed pretty obvious that Mister was just May's way of coping with her father's sudden absence. He was a friendly guy who said nice things and spent time with her, just like she subconsciously wished her father would. And all of this just broke my heart. When I tried to bring it up with Cody, he was his usual charming self and told me that May was 5. It was just a little kid playing pretend, and it meant nothing. He refused to consider she might be hurting, and ended the phone call with his signature hang up. May, for the most part though, seemed entirely unaware of what Mister might symbolize, and she was quite happy to tell me the stories of his visits, which just often boiled down to her talking in front of the mirror. About a month after Mister had made his first appearance, I started noticing something odd. Some of my things, just small things that I used every day, but never really took stock much of, started to get used up more quickly than what I was used to. Especially my perfume. I didn't think I'd been wearing it that much. Just a spray here and there when I could be bothered to remember in the morning. But half the bottle was gone. May? I called over my shoulder while looking through my makeup bag. May, sweetie, can you come here, please? I heard her little feet scamper out of her bedroom, and she appeared in the doorway. Honey, have you been using my perfume and lipstick? I knew she liked playing dress-up sometimes, but she usually asked first.
No,
she said, but it was with a child's slyness that told me she had thought she had found a loophole, so technically she wasn't lying. May? I turned and held up my half-empty bottle of perfume.
It wasn't me. Not really.
Not really.
Well, sometimes Mister likes it when I spray the perfume.
And the lipstick? She shrugged.
I think it comes out of the mirror sometimes.
To put on makeup. She nodded solemnly. Okay, sure. Who said the man in the mirror couldn't like feeling pretty every once in a while? Well, you tell Mister that he's allowed to use my stuff, but only if he asks my permission first. Okay?
Okay, Mama.
I thought I'd put an end to it. End the discussion, you know? But it was then that I started noticing some of my more risque panties were missing. I didn't own many, so it wasn't too hard to notice when I was short a pair. After I discovered that, though, I went to May's room and sat on the edge of her bed, patting the spot next to me so she'd join. May, sweetie, have you been going through my undies drawer?
Ew, no!
Are you sure?
Gross!
Then, do you know where a pair of mine might have gone?
Maybe Mister took them.
You think Mister took a pair of Mommy's underwear?
I don't know, maybe.
She leaned in and waved me close so she could cup her hands around my ear and whisper.
I think he likes it when you're in your undies.
I pulled back with a frown and looked down at May, who didn't seem to understand why that kind of a statement coming out of such a young child's mouth might be worrying. Sweetie, why would you say that?
Well, 'cause sometimes when you're in the shower, if I put my ear against the mirror and listen real close, I can hear him breathing. He doesn't answer me when I try to talk to him, though, probably because he doesn't want you to hear.
Breathing? I swallowed hard, a cold prickling feeling crawling up my neck. Nothing about what she was saying sounded like normal imaginary friend activities, and it certainly didn't sound like something a 5-year-old would think up on her own.
Uh-huh. I think he waits for you to be done in your shower so he can see you get dressed. Daddy used to say he liked your undies, so I don't know, maybe Mr. does too.
Okay, kiddo. You just stay in this room, okay? You stay right here. I'll be right back, okay?
Okay, Mama.
I got up and crept back to the bathroom, where I closed the door and stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. I listened closely, but I heard nothing, just the sound of my own heart pounding in my ears. It was crazy to even think. Mr. was just make-believe, a product of May's imagination. But what kind of imaginary friend steals Mommy's panties? My fingers had closed on my hairdryer, lying on the counter beside me, and before I even had any time to second-guess myself, I hurled it at the mirror. I shielded my face from the glass that came raining down from the wall, and I immediately regretted it. I had read too much into May's mischievous imagination. Of course she was just repeating things that her father had said, and she was just using my makeup and then blaming Mr. Of course, I should have been more rational and really thought about it before busting up the mirror in the rental house. It had been an impulsive decision. It had been really dumb and dangerous. But it had also uncovered a camera sitting on a tripod in a tiny crawl space between the walls. That mirror, I realized, with a knife-like twist in my gut, had been a two-way. I was wrenched out of my frozen horror by the frantic sound of scuffling coming from around the corner, as if someone was trying to squeeze quickly back through the crawl space to get away. "Stay in your room, May!" I screamed as I slid out of the bathroom, my fear fast giving way for Mama Bear rage. I took to the stairs 2 and 3 at a time, pulling myself down the banister and leaping from one last step to grab the front door and yank it open. I only had enough time to see a man peeling away from the curb across the street, but it was enough. I recognized the car from a few encounters I had had with its owner. I turned and hurried back inside to call the police to report my landlord for spying on us from behind our bathroom mirror.